Welcome to the All Out Leadership Podcast, hosted by Pastor Eric Lawson, where each episode is uniquely designed to help you live all out by bringing you practical leadership from a biblical perspective delivered in 10 minutes or less. So whether you're a business leader, serving in ministry, or simply looking to grow in your leadership, this podcast is for you. Before we dive into this week's topic, make sure to subscribe to the podcast and download the show notes at ericlawson.com/podcast. And while you're at it, feel free to share the content on social media. Now, let's join Pastor Eric for this week's conversation.
Welcome to another edition of the All Out Leadership Podcast. We're in the story of Absalom, learning some important leadership principles of what not to be and of also what to watch out for in the organization that you lead. 2 Samuel chapter 15, verse 6. And in this manner, Absalom acted towards all Israel who came to the king for judgment. So Absalom stole the hearts of the men of Israel. I want to talk about stealing hearts for a minute. To steal means to take something that doesn't belong to you. God's establishing a very important principle here, and that is the leader that God placed over that organization or allowed to be over that organization. The hearts of the people don't belong to the management team, to you. It belongs to the leader. So we're going to unpack a couple things here. First, David is a type of Christ. So the first principle is this: every man's heart should be pointed towards Jesus. When leaders draw people's hearts and love and affection to themselves rather than Jesus, we're stealing hearts that don't belong to us. At the end of the day, it's very dangerous if we become personality-driven leaders that draw men to ourselves rather than point people to Jesus. You know, Jesus said, if I be lifted up, I'll draw all men unto me. So as a pastor, I have to continually make sure that I'm pointing people to Jesus, not drawing people's affection to myself. Oh, Pastor, you're great, and that was such a great sermon. Well, let me tell you about Jesus. Thank you for the grace of God. If it wasn't for the grace of God, so would I be. You know, my whole goal is I'm trying to be Teflon when it comes to compliments, that it kind of just ricochets off me and just bounces on up to Jesus, because I'm never as good as you think I am. I'm also not as bad as you think I am either. Just keep that in mind. But it's Jesus. If there's anything good in me, it's Jesus. And so our job as leaders is to point people to Christ. Paul did a great job. He said, follow me as I follow Christ. He was always continually pointing everybody back to Jesus. In fact, what you see in the journey of Paul is he continually began to think less of himself and more of Jesus. You know, I'm not the least of all the apostles. And then he ends with, I'm the chief of sinners. And the longer you walk with Christ, the more unimpressed you should be with yourself, and the more impressed you are that Jesus can even use you. And at the end of the day, he gets all the glory. So very, very important that as a pastor, as any position inside of a church or in a secular, they're in the marketplace ministry, that you're not stealing the hearts of the people towards yourself. Next, we do see that God works through leaders. So David was given the throne, and as a leader, the people's hearts should have been rallying around the king of Israel and what the vision that God would be speaking through the head of the nation of Israel at that time, which would be David, the chief shepherd. God works through the shepherds of church, through the senior pastor. He works through, top down. And so the hearts of people do not belong to the staff. They ultimately belong to the pastor, who, if the pastor's doing their job right, isn't taking people's hearts other than, hey, let me point it back to Jesus. Let me show you Jesus, that at the end of the day, you're less impressed with me and you're more impressed with Jesus. My goal is to be so small that all you see is Jesus standing behind me. But the danger is when we're so big, we can't see the Jesus standing behind us. And that's a very fine line, and that we always have to continually manage that, because often people first see Jesus through a man, through a woman that God's using. But ultimately, we're to get out of the way of Jesus to go, let me show you who really is the one that deserves your affection, your loyalty, your praise, and your admiration. But this principle still does apply inside of church, that there are times that people will try to steal the loyalty that doesn't belong to them and draw people to themselves. I've seen this many times in churches where you'll have a staff person who will kind of just begin to draw a little group of people to themselves. Oh man, you're so great. And oh, that's awesome. And they build their own little circle, their own little kingdom. And ultimately, often what happens is the church gets hurt. That leader has a disagreement with that pastor. They go off and they start another church. Now, I want to encourage you, if you're listening to this and you're part of that little group, never go to that group and join another church that started that way, because that's not how God starts churches. If you want to see how God starts churches, God sends them out, not splinters them out. That's not how God starts churches. I've had this over a few years, over 17 years as a pastor. From time to time, I'll have a staff member or two where it just seems like they kind of just draw people to themselves. They just kind of always seem to know how to draw affection and admiration in themselves, and they build little groups. And I'd go have conversations, and some of them I could kind of help them mature through that, pastor. And then some of them I just had to say, hey, look, I'm not sure that this is the right place long term, so let's figure out an exit strategy for you. If you are anywhere inside of an organization where you aren't the boss, continually push people's loyalty up. So here's a couple things. Cover your leader's weakness. And what Absalom did is he exposed his father's weakness. For whatever reason, David hadn't been able to get to all the requests to, for him to be judge and arbitrator. And so he exposed his dad's weakness. We don't know why he didn't, but we just know he exposed it. If you're going around kind of, I don't quite agree. I know. That's exposing a leader's weakness. And then what you should be doing is talking about your leader's strength. Talk about what they're good at. Here's a danger: comparing your strength against your leader's weakness. Well, a smart leader hired you because they knew they had a weakness and you had a strength that covered that weakness. But if you begin to highlight their weakness and your strength, you're in a dangerous area. Look, why don't you go ahead and try measuring your weakness against their strength, because that would be a much better playing field to help keep a proper perspective for you. As a pastor, there's just some things I'm not necessarily good at, and I'm okay with that. God hasn't called me to be great at everything. That's why there's multiple gifts in the body of Christ. So I just surround myself with people who are experts and better at certain things than me. I'm not threatened by that. I go, you should be better at that. I hope you do know more about that than I do, and I celebrate that. I need that around me, and that's how we become a great team. Next, standing next to your leader thinking you carry the same weight as that leader. That's a very dangerous situation. There was an elephant and an ant, and they were walking across a wooden bridge, and that bridge just shook, and that little ant was just bouncing up and down as they were walking across. They got across, and the ant said to his friend the elephant, "Boy, we sure shook that thing, didn't we?" Well, I'm not sure the ant shook that thing quite as much as the elephant did. What I've noticed over the years is there are people who will stand next to the boss, stand next to the pastor, stand next to the entrepreneur who started that organization that's now thriving and successful. And just because they stand next to him, they go, wow, man, I carry a lot of weight. And the number one thing I've heard from every church planter, and we've planted some great churches, and I've helped, all kinds of church plants get started. In talking with every church planter, here's the number one thing I always hear: wow, I had no idea how much weight it was to be a senior pastor. If you're working next to a boss, the CEO, the entrepreneur of a company, or you're on a staff at a church and you're high in the organization, don't confuse that you're standing side by side as to you're carrying the same weight as them, because you're not. You have no idea the weight that CEO carries, that senior pastor carries. It is not the same thing. In fact, there was some disciples, John and James, they kind of pressured mom to go, hey, tell Jesus to let us sit at the left and right hand of him and his kingdom. And so she came and worshiped him, and Jesus saw through it, and he goes, what do you want? And he goes, well, since you're asking, just let my son John and James sit next to you, one on the left, one on the right. Don't really care. Either way, it's a win. So Jesus said, can you drink from the cup I'm about to drink? And they go, yeah, we can. And they had no idea the weight of the cup of suffering that Jesus would carry. And they wanted crowns, but there was a cross before there was a crown. And a lot of times when you look at somebody who started a company, started a business, or started a church, you have no idea the cups of suffering that they drank. You have no idea the cross that they carry to get there. So be very careful of what seat you desire to have, because ultimately Absalom coveting his father's seat got him killed. What's interesting, the very things that he prided himself in, which was his beautiful long flowing hair, when you see the end of his story, it was his hair that got caught in a tree, and he got caught in a thicket, and it was the thing he prided himself in that got him caught that actually got him killed. And so be very careful about the seat that you desire and covet. Have a spirit of contentment. Thank God for where you are. Let God promote you, and be continually pushing loyalty up. Ultimately, Jesus is the one and alone who deserves all the glory. Every knee will bow, every tongue confess that alone Christ is Lord. Any reward we have, whether it's a senior pastor or it was the janitor of the church, we're all going to be shoulder to shoulder, bowing down, throwing our rewards and our crowns at the feet of Jesus. Because at the end of the day, there's really only one that's impressive, and that's Jesus Christ. So let's always keep that in mind and know ultimately the hearts always belong to Jesus.
Thank you for joining us on the All Out Leadership Podcast. We hope you gained new biblical insight that challenged you to grow in your leadership. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, we would love your help in getting the content out farther. You can help by subscribing to the podcast at ericlawson.com/podcast and telling others about it. Next week, Pastor Eric will be back with another episode. So until then, we hope you have a great week being an all-out leader.